Gadi Al-Ghazi is a historian. Here he speaks in Tel Aviv about the history of the JNF and land acquisition in Israel.
The story of land in Israel is fascinating, but there are two laws, again, almost none of Israeli citizens, and certainly none in my daughter's class, she's now 17, has heard of. The first law is, of course, the law of 1949 regulating the possession of the Palestinian refugees.
The absentees property law confiscated all the property and land of Palestinians who fled or were expelled in 1948, including in some cases internally displaced refugees who later became citizens of Israel. During the war of 1948, when Israel was created, 2/3 of the Palestinian population became refugees, most of whom are today in Lebanon, Syria, Jordan, the West Bank, and Gaza. They were never allowed to return. The absentee properties law transferred their land to a custodian, which either sold or gave it to Jewish owners.
Ben-Gurion's idea in June 1949 was to circumvent any future action by simply selling, absolutely illegally, selling the land entrusted to the custodian to some third party, so that the state of Israel, in case of an international debate, can safely say, sorry, like any bicycle thief in the streets of Tel Aviv, sorry, it's not in my hand anymore. So within a few days, 1 million dunam was sold to the JNF. It took about 8 days to realize one of the biggest deals, business deals, in the history of Israel, for a price well below their value. And if you want, and the nice thing about it is that the JNF never even paid for most of this land.
The government then reached another agreement with the JNF, where it would be subsidized to build infrastructure on the land in exchange for securing it for Jewish settlement and forestation.
So all in all, the JNF has acquired from the land of the refugees, not from its owners, but from the custodian, 1,300,000 dunams. And they remain to this very day the property of the JNF, and it applies to this property, which is Palestinian property, the rule that the land cannot be leased or sold to Arabs.
One such example is the village of Ma'alul in northern Israel. Its lands were transferred to the JNF, and its Palestinian inhabitants were expelled. In a tour, the Israeli organization Zochrot, that works to commemorate the history of 1948, brought together the refugees and their descendants. Here, refugees from Ma'alul place a sign marking what was once the entrance to their village. Israeli expulsion campaigns against the Palestinians didn't stop in 1948. They continued throughout the 50s and 60s, and during the 1967 war, 300,000 Palestinians were again made refugees. In the Latrun area, on the outskirts of Jerusalem, 3 villages were forcibly expelled. Their residents fled to the West Bank, and the village lands were transferred to the JNF. Raising funds from Canadian Jewish philanthropists, the Jewish National Fund built Canada Park on the site, a history Zochrot is fighting to commemorate.
יש שלטים בפארק שמסבירים על ההיסטוריה של המקום הזה, אבל לא הזכירו, עד שזוכרות לא פעלה להציב שלטים, לא אילצה בעצם את קק"ל באמצעות עתירה לבג"ץ להציב שלטים שמזכירים את הכפרים האלה, אז ההיסטוריה של קק"ל לא הזכירה בכלל את קיום הכפרים האלה, אלא רק היסטוריות אחרות, כמו היסטוריה רומאית, ביזנטית, עות'מאנית, יהודית. כשהתחילו לבנות את הפארק הזה, אז אחד מפליטי בית נובה, שזה אחד הכפרים שנהרסו פה, הוא ידע על זה שבונים פה את הפארק, אז הוא התחיל לכתוב, הוא כתב מכתבים לעיתונים, והוא פנה למנהיגים בקנדה, והוא הצליח גם להיפגש, נדמה לי, עם מנהיג אחד או שניים. במהלך ככה הסקנדל הציבורי הזה, אחד מהדברים שקק"ל עשה היה לשלוח לו תעודת הוקרה או תעודת כבוד כזאת. יש לי את זה אצלי, זה פשוט נייר פשוט כזה שמספר שקק"ל נטע עץ לכבודו ועל שמו של אסמאעיל זייד בפארק קנדה.
Today, Palestinians are fighting the JNF in Israel, East Jerusalem, and in the West Bank, where it operates under a subsidiary called Hamuta. It is this daughter company that works to evict Palestinians in East Jerusalem using another law passed shortly after the 48 war.
Number two is another piece of legislation that shapes our lives here. And this is the law from 1952, 1953. It simply said that whoever was not on his land or her land on the crucial date, April 1953, was not cultivating it at this crucial date, the land can expropriate this land for reasons of, for purpose of development, security, or settlement, without even notifying the legal owners. Whereas the first law pertains to the refugees, the second law pertained to Palestinian land of Palestinian citizens of Israel. Now, if you just managed to dissociate them, even temporarily, from the land for the important and crucial phase, you could just take it and that's it.
In 2007, the Israeli human rights group Adallah filed a petition to the Israeli Supreme Court. It argued the JNF's policy of leasing land it took from Palestinians for Jewish-only use is discriminatory. Specifically, it referred to a part of the JNF lease regulations that say, the land could not be leased to a non-Jew, nor could the lease be subleased or sold or mortgaged or given or bequeathed to any but a Jew. Non-Jews could not be employed on the land or even in any work connected to the cultivation of the land. Violation of this term of the lease rendered the leasee liable for damages to the leaser. In its response to the Supreme Court petition, the Jewish National Fund stated, the JNF was established and functions solely for the benefit of the Jewish people. The JNF is not obliged to act equally towards all the citizens of the state in the allocation of lands. A decision hasn't yet been made whether to change the regulations. The fight Al-Rakib and residents of East Jerusalem are waging is not part of a global movement. Many, for example, are questioning the JNF's charitable status in countries such as Canada and the United States. For The Real News, I'm Leah Terechansky in Tel Aviv.